Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have a guest with us tonight, Susie Maroney, OAM. Susie was a teenage phenom, joined the professional circuit at an incredibly young age, completed a lot of big and fast solos, and has kind of taken a break from that level of swimming from about age 25. So say hello, Susie.
Hi, how are you, everyone?
Susie, you did the English Channel solo at age 15 and a two-way at age 16 in 17 hours and 15 minutes. That was 1991. It set the female speed record, which still stands today. Tell us about that swim, and are you surprised the record still holds?
Yeah, I just remember, wanting to do the English Channel, like because I was training so hard, and I was always good at long distance. And I remember my mum at when I was like 14 saying, "What about you do the English Channel?" And she brought in a map, and England and France were so close together. I thought, oh, that doesn't seem that hard. So yeah, I just remember being young, and then when I got to England and was in Dover, and I remember running over the pebbles and feeling the water straight away because that's the first thing you think about as doing the English Channel. And I remember putting my hand in the water in the harbour and going, "Oh, it's not that bad." But then when I went for a training swim, I remember my teeth hurt, my head hurt, and thought, "Oh, okay, this is why it's really hard." But yeah, I was just young, and I just have really good memories of being excited to do first ever challenge. I've never challenged myself at such a young age, and knowing that I was swimming from one country to another and not seeing, much land because it was quite foggy. Yeah, it was just excitement and all that hard training that I'd done before. Now I knew why I had to do that.
Tell us about the two-way. Did you have any psychological tricks to make the turn?
Yes, well, when I came back from, the one-way English channel, I remember, in Dover and being on the pebbles, how everyone sits together and trains together in the harbour. And after that first swim, Alison Streeter arrived, and she had just finished her triple crossing of the English Channel. And when I saw her being a 15-year-old, she showed me all the marks under her arms, all the blood and, the chafe marks. And I remember being so proud of myself doing a one way and then looking at Alice and going, oh, I think I better come back the next year and try and do a double. So I think I was inspired by the older marathon swimmers to go, oh, if they can do that, then. But yeah, the double English channel was more training. So, I had to get into the pool and do, in those days, it was all about being in the pool and doing hours. I'd do 6 hours every Saturday non-stop and training morning and afternoon. And even on the Saturday, I'd go to Coogee Beach and swim in the surf while it was winter. So mentally, as a 16-year-old, I was quite tough because of all that hard work. I wasn't going out to parties with my friends. I was just focused on training. But I just remember the double English channel. The first leg, I remember thinking, that's okay. I felt okay. But then, you touch land and then you have to come back. And I remember seeing another Australian swimmer passing me Baden Green. And I thought, oh, he gets to hop out and I have to swim all the way back, to Dover. So that was kind of mentally, I remember thinking, oh, I've got a long, night and day ahead of me. But I've still actually there was one annoying thing when I was swimming. I had a little crab in my swimmers, and I didn't know. It was just something biting me in my swimmers in the English Channel. And then when I finished the swim, I think it was 16 hours that swim was yeah, 17 minutes or something. And I had a bath, and there was this little crab in my cosy. So I must have taken it in the double English channel all the way back to the bath in Dover.
Uh,
But
uh,
those
uh,
little things, when
all right,
I've
All
still
right,
got it in
Susie.
my,
We know the crab's in a little jar of alcohol on the desk behind you. Show us the crab.
I have it in my photo album. Mum brought it back to Australia. It's in a photo album with sticky tape on top of it. But I show the kids, and they just laugh, my children. But yeah, things like that. But it was hard. I remember getting, really weak wrists. Like I think I fractured my wrists a little bit. They became weaker from all that, pulling underneath, and I was swollen, my mouth was swollen. But I finally felt like the double English channel was really tough, like
You wouldn't recognize Dover today, or in the summer of the northern summer. There are hundreds of people down there, but
oh
but the exact same thing happens, which is somebody from God knows where comes to Dover, and they're a little bit hesitant, and then somebody who weighs a whole lot and swims really slow has done the channel, and they go, okay, well, I can't use my speed as an excuse. And then there's
yeah,
somebody
that's
else who
right.
did the channel when they were like 73, and they go, okay, well, I can't
Yes,
really tell you I'm tired because I'm 45. And there's all that
yes.
inspiration continues to happen.
It is so true. Yeah. As soon as I saw Alison Streeter with the chafe marks, I thought, oh, that's tough. I'm not tough. She's tough.
And can you believe the record still stands, your speed record for females?
Yeah. I think, I had a really good day. I had, good weather. I was really fast at that age at 16. I wasn't doing major long, long swims that can sometimes slow you down in your training. So, yeah, and I think I had that mindset of hurry up and get it over and done with. So yeah, I am, I did train hard, and I was pretty fast at that age. But yeah, it's nice that it still stands. It probably won't stand much longer. There's got to be a time.
You never know. So let me move to the professional racing circuit. You swam between 1990 and 94, three times in Capri, Naples, twice
Yeah,
Rio Grande in Argentina, Lake Memphremagog, Lac Sylvan. You must have been the youngest swimmer. There must have been people old enough
yeah,
to be your grandfather or grandmother
yeah.
on that circuit.
Oh, it was amazing time. I mean, being young again, I was happy to be out of school and not have to go to school. Be a few months away, but they were tough swims. Like, I was probably, yeah, I think I was probably, they were all 10 years or more older than me. But I remember everyone was so welcoming because, I was young, and they'd kind of pat me on the head, like, oh, poor her, or she's only young. But yeah, I remember meeting like Claudio Pitt. He was really like a mentor to me because he would always look after me before the Capri to Naples swim and say, "You okay?" My mum adored him because he's so good looking. But I remember Claudio and just the advice he gave me. I used to stick next to him at the start of the race because I thought he'd look after me. And you had Diego Degano in the race, and all those Irene, and from Japan, Yuko, Rita Kovacs. We had a really good era of everyone looking after each other. And because I was the youngest, everyone would party afterwards, and I'd just be, in a corner and just by myself. But that's okay.
So
But it was,
everyone says that Claudio was like he was the godfather of the events, and
oh,
he would
yes.
he would take care of the
Yeah.
organizers, make sure people got the right
Oh,
money, and he everybody
yes.
looked up to him. But uh,
Everyone.
he'll be delighted to see
Yeah.
that your
But
mother thought he was gorgeous.
oh, he was gorgeous. And then I even named my daughter Capri after the swim Capri to Naples. So I had a love affair of the Isle of Capri. It was so beautiful, the Blue Grotto,
Yeah.
swimming in there before the swim. we really like, had a nice time back in the 90s.
One of our Irish honorees, Ted Keenan, his daughter is named Channel, Chanel.
Oh, oh, I like that. I like that. I've got Paris, but that's not the channel I like.
Tell us about your professional swims. What was your favorite? What was the hardest? What was the
Yeah.
most interesting?
Yeah, I think, the English Channel holds, close to my heart because it was the first time I had done real marathon swimming. But I think the Cuba swim, swimming from Cuba to America, it was such an unknown, then I remember I got an article from my uncle. He sent it to mum, and it was about a man named Skip Storch, and he had attempted the swim. And I remember reading the article back in Australia, and my mum saying, "Oh, Susie," because my mum thinks I can do anything. Um, what about doing this swim from Cuba to America? And I didn't even know where Cuba was. I was only young, like in my teenage years. And I just thought, yes, that sounds good, Mum. And, off we went training. But in those days, swimming from Cuba to America, there wasn't really email. It was like a lot of faxes back and forth to the Cuban, the Coast Guards, and then you had the American Coast Guards, so they all had to know what you were doing. Then we had to, I don't know how my mum, you know, had a cage to build as well so that we could tow that back to Cuba. So when I look back at all the letter writing, and mum would write to sponsors to try and get sponsors as well because it was so expensive to have a support boat, a cage. So, forever, my mum was doing night shift as a nurse, but during the day, she was just typing letters, organizing everything so that it could actually happen. But yeah, so I guess that swim, because, it was such a tough swim. The first year I attempted and just made it to US waters, and I was in the water for 39 hours. So then I went back and, attempted it again, and we had great currents. It was, I think people do talk about being in a cage, but I think my mum being a nurse, and she was a bit worried about the Portuguese man of war, the jellyfish, and wanted me in the cage. But it was harder actually in the cage because you do get a lot of turbulence. So I remember the Cuba to, US, most of the day I'd be outside the cage because it would be, so rough inside the cage, and you'd be sheltered by the support boat. But yeah, I think that swim because, and I got to meet Fidel Castro, and it was amazing. We were in the hotel in Havana, and all of a sudden it goes quiet. There's no one coming in the foyer. And then we get a notice, Fidel Castro would like to meet you in the palace. So, it's just amazing to have that opportunity. And we were there for 6 hours. He was so welcoming because, we're sport. He loves his sport. And he gave me all these trophies up to here, and box of cigars, and asked if kangaroos box in Australia. He had a good sense of humor. And I think that's what sport does. It brings, countries together. And I guess, I had the pleasure of meeting him 2 times. So, I've still got the cigars and the photos. And that I think was really amazing for me because my family got to share it as well. And we saw some Cuban Olympians and saw how they trained. And Cuba, definitely going back to Cuba soon.
Had you swum in a shark cage before then?
Yes, there was a couple of swims like the Townsville to Magnetic Island. Um, they used a cage, but I did find that, when you're swimming in the cage, again, because my wrists were quite weak, like my wrists would hurt, and I finished that swim with fractured wrists because, you sometimes hit the cage, and then when you're pulling underwater, it's hard. So I was probably about 8 hours outside the cage during the day. And then at night time, of course, you know, went in the cage because, I guess my mum loved me.
And were you
Keeping me
in the
safe.
cage primarily for the jellies or the sharks, or was it all the same
Yeah,
to
I
you?
think the sharks, yeah. I'm sure there were a couple of guns on board, but just in case. But yeah, I think protection, that's what I got, the cage was for protection. They did have on the boat also, you could see if jellyfish were around. They're amazing, like Portuguese men were. So when I was outside the cage swimming because I was vomiting a lot, they would say, Susie, come back in because there's, the Portuguese man or jellyfish. So then I'd come back. There was a sperm whale when I was outside the cage,
Wow.
so I had to swim back into the cage. But yeah, I mean, I would say to my mum, because, but mum, sharks come up. I'd be so scared.
Um, Tell us about Manhattan. You swam Manhattan a number of times. Let's see, you swam Manhattan 4 times. You set a speed
Mm.
record of 7 hours, 0 minutes, and you won twice, beating all the men and the women. Your favorite memories of, first of all, New York, the experience, and then we'll talk about the swim.
Yeah, it was, well, I was only 14 when I first swam the from Manhattan Island. So that was the first time I went to New York. So I was so excited. And Shelley Taylor Smith won it that year in the women's, and so I was inspired again. I thought, oh, I love New York, and then went back the next time, and won the swim. But I just remember the shopping. I loved I loved it when I finished the swim. But of course, during the swim, it was like a washing machine, but it was amazing. Like, to get in the water at Battery Park, and it takes you so fast, like the current. It was, it felt really good to be in the water and go really fast. Then you're kind of not moving past the, Empire State Building. It feels like you're never going to get past it. But yeah, there were so many bridges. I remember thinking, how many bridges am I going under? Like, it was an amazing swim. It was pretty dirty back in 1989, I remember. And, you'd be swimming and you'd think you'd hit a log or you'd hit, something in the waters. But I was just told, don't swallow the water and you'll be fine. But yeah, I love New York, and I always remember the penguin shop that was, I think it was on a pier or something, and I bought a couple of penguins. But again, when you're young, you're fearless. You just think, yep, I've trained hard, I've done all the work. This is the easy part.
So by your last Manhattan, you were probably old enough to go to a nightclub. Did your mom
Oh,
catch
did
you
I?
trying to sneak out at the end there?
Oh, I probably can't remember.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. I see your kids are going to be watching this. Yeah, yeah, I got it. Okay,
Yeah, they were my older teenage years. Yeah, let's forget that.
okay. Um, what have you been up to since you kind of stepped back from that level of swimming?
Yes. Well, then, my twin brother had passed away when I was like, 26. So my last swim was from Darling Harbour to Manly in Australia. So I did one last swim. And then after that, I just really wanted to be normal. I wanted to, meet someone, have some children, and um, that happened. I've got three beautiful children, and kind of, stopped swimming. I think it was so much swimming at that time that I just didn't want to do, I did all the swims that I wanted to achieve, Cuba, meeting Fidel Castro, the English Channel. I thought that they were enough that I could retire. And then so yeah, so I have my beautiful children, and but now I'm 5 hours in the water every day because I learned to swim teacher. So, in the morning I'm in the water, and then in the afternoon I do babies, and then I do, the intermediate, and a little bit of young squad kids. So I'm still in the water every single day, but I love seeing them improve. I love their technique, and I'm just enjoying it. Yeah, I really love it.
Any temptation to get back and knock off a marathon in the next couple of years?
Well, sometimes, like, when the kids are watching me, I'll do a lap or something, and I feel good after 25 meters, but I just haven't, gone past that. When I feel good, I usually stop.
Because
But yeah,
there's a two-way channel record in England. It's there for the breaking.
yeah, yeah. Maybe when I'm, I try and wait to the oldest person, then I'll come back.
I want to talk about Australia and community. You received an OAM. You've been an ambassador for the Asthma Foundation, Special Olympics Australia, the Leukemia Foundation, and you recently were one of the hosts at the citizenship ceremony. How important is all of that to you?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love being able to, now that I'm older, I think when I was a teenager, it was kind of like you loved yourself if you talked about what you had done, or, it was kind of, but now that I'm older, I think, oh, that story is actually quite interesting. And the training that I did was really hard. And if it can inspire the younger generation that, you can't just say, oh, I want to do that. You actually have to put in the hours and mentally. I remember before the Cuba swim, I made sure I did a 24-hour swim nonstop, the Guinness Book of Records one. So mentally, I knew that you don't have to cry until you get to 24 hours because you've done that before. So I think, yeah, it is. I love it. I love going to Australia Day, and we have the citizenship ceremony, and all the new people that are coming to Australia, and they hear a story that this girl from Australia swims from one country to another, and they love it. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it, and the charities that I do, it's nice to be able to give back. Makes me feel good. So,
Susie, I want to thank you very much for your time today, for
thank you,
reliving some of
Ned.
those memories.
Yep.
For viewers who like these kind of interviews, if you'll hang on a second, we'll give you a chance to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we've also got a series of contacts. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all those things. So again, Susie, thank you very, very much.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Bye.